What's going on, everybody? Appreciate you tuning in. We got to talk a little basketball because the playoffs are here in the WNBA. Mercury taking on the Liberty. Game 2 tonight. And we're going to break this thing down, being joined by Wendy Lopez, our beat writer for Burn City. Wendy, how you doing tonight?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good. How are you doing?
I'm doing a little bit better after watching that game
Oh,
because
yeah.
what was a little tougher to watch than that. That was dominant. That was an absolute beatdown tonight by the Mercury on the road, no less. And I mean, there's so many angles, so many storylines to talk about. I think you got to start with the second quarter, though. They really were able to grab control of this game early, and it felt like as soon as they threw that first haymaker, it didn't really ever feel like the Liberty kind of got back into this thing. What do you think was the big difference, though, from game one to game two? Because there was a little bit more back and forth in game one and kind of got away from them. Game two, it felt like this thing was basically done by halftime.
Yeah, so pretty much what I saw from my perspective is just the Mercury making those shots. Game 1, they were trying to get those shots. They weren't, falling in. That's why it was such a close game. But today, 26 in the second quarter, 18 in the third, 17 in the fourth. But what really, really helped this team was their defense. And that's just been something that head coach Nate Tibbetts has been so adamant about throughout the season is their defense, is their defense. They kept the Liberty to 12 in the second, 10 in the third, and 13 in the fourth, which is crazy because they're the reigning champions, right? They have Natasha Cloud, they have Sabrina Ionescu, and of course Brianna Stewart, who was hurt MCL sprain tonight. So she didn't play as many minutes, but overall, just getting those shots in and, of course, defense, which has been something that Phoenix has been so, so good at throughout the regular season.
Yeah, holding them to 23 points in the second half and 35 from the after the first quarter. They really cranked down. And you look at the percentages. I mean, the Liberty only shot 30% from the field in this game compared to 48 from the Mercury and 91% of the line from Mercury. Like across the board, all the counting stats went in the Mercury, which you would expect in a game where you win by 26. But the amount of confidence, the amount of kind of the build off that you can get from this game, this feels like a momentum swinging moment. And in a 3-game series, you probably don't have very many opportunities for one. And obviously, it was a must win game for them. But in the fashion that they won, it really feels like the entire series kind of swung tonight.
Oh, for sure. I mean, New York has such a rowdy crowd, right? They're loud. They want their team to win. And it's not like the Phoenix Mercury haven't won in New York before. They defeated them back in the regular season. Uh, but playoff atmosphere is just so important, right? It really just changes the momentum. And, when the Mercury first got home court advantage, that's what they were expecting, right? Some kind of momentum to begin the playoffs didn't go their way. So this game was so critical for them to just overcome the crowd, overcome being the visitors, right? And they did that. I mean, you just see the box score 86-60. That's what you need to come back to Phoenix. That is the momentum you need to seal a game 3, right? To win the series and to continue play in the playoffs. So definitely a momentum changer. And yeah, that's what they need. That's what they needed. They played like their season was on the line, and they're gonna have to keep playing like their season is on the line, on Friday.
You talk about the crowd. It's funny, like, yeah, Liberty home crowd is normally known for being pretty rambunctious. Obviously, in the post game, if you listen to their team, they were not happy with kind of how quiet it was in there tonight. I think the flip side of that is the Mercury did a really good job of taking the home crowd out of this thing. When you are able to kind of pull away like that, there's not a lot for a home crowd to cheer. You got to have some moments and some stuff to kind of bring the energy. So there's two parts to that that I think are connected, and it's the fact that the Mercury knew they needed to take the home crowd out early and get an opportunity of kind of eliminating that home court advantage. But it was interesting listening to how much that seemed to get to some of the Liberty players and how much there was a point of emphasis of pointing out how it was relatively quiet in there tonight.
Yeah, I mean, it's really tough, to get your crowd going when you're down by so many and so early in the game, right? Being down by almost 30 points, that really takes out the energy of the home crowd. And the Mercury did such a good job just trying to get them out of the game because we know how home crowds are. Once the home team gets a rally going, gets on a run, it's really hard to really swing momentum back. And I think the Mercury did such a good job doing that at the beginning of the game, taking the lead into halftime, and just not letting the crowd get into the game, right? Um, Kaw mentioned it, Kalia Copper, in the post game. How she said that the crowd was a little bit quieter than usual. So I think they did such a good job doing that, and now they're gonna have to rely on their crowd to hype them up, to give them momentum heading into game 3.
Couple of really nice performances for Phoenix tonight. Alyssa Thomas gives them 15, 6, and 7. Satu also has a pretty nice game, going 15, 4, and 7. And any specific player that you looked at tonight that you felt like really kind of helped push this game kind of out of reach there for Phoenix? Or was there anyone, is it just another one where you do have six, I think it was 5 or 6 players in double figures? Was this just another really good team performance across the board? Or was anyone in particular that kind of caught your eye?
This was a collective win. Like you said, there were 4 or 5 players that were hitting double digits, but I think the storyline in this game specifically was Satu Sabli. So after her performance in game 1, she went 2 for 17 and only had 9 points. It just wasn't her game. So the storyline coming into the game was, how was Satu Sabli going to contribute in tonight's win? And she went all in. She had 15 points. She went 5 for 11 from the field, 2 for 4 from 3. And I think that's the type of performance that they need from their top 3 players, Satu Sabli, Kalia Copper, and Alyssa Thomas, right? Um, some of those shots that Sabli missed, in game 1 could have won the game for Phoenix. Unfortunately, they just weren't falling in. And throughout the week before tonight's game, she was talking about how she wasn't letting the negativity get to her. Right? She was watching film. She wanted to see what was going on. She wanted, make those changes, and she did. She really, really helped this team, go on a run. Um, and I think she's the one that really helped this team get the victory tonight. Of course, Alyssa Thomas, 15 points. Dewana Bonner off the bench, 14 points. Another amazing game from her. Even Westbeld, Catherine Westbeld, she's a rookie, and she came off the bench with 10 points. She hit 2 major three-pointers that really helped swing the momentum to Phoenix's favor. So those are the few players that stand out for me. But, this was Sabli's game. She needed this game.
Conversely, I mean, another big storyline coming in was Stewie's health, and it was they knew she was going to play, or at least it was announced earlier today, so it wasn't like a surprise that she was out there or anything. But she did look limited, and she did not look like her usual self. And they kind of have two heads to the snake between her and Sabrina, and it felt a lot like once Stewie was clearly not going to be herself, you were able to key a little bit more on Sabrina, and it really changed the entire dynamic of this game and of that team. And it's a knee injury. I mean, it's something that's not going to be 100% come, game 3. How impactful in your mind did that change what they were able to do in this game? And is that something you think you can expect in game 3 if she's also limited, that we can see that type of thing? Or is, the extra couple of days maybe to let it ice and heal better, and then also maybe to kind of change your game plan? Do you think we'll see a similar thing from the Liberty, in game 3?
She only played 20 minutes, right? Obviously that knee is not 100%. They've been doing a lot of triage on it. You could see during the game she had that brace on. Broadcast was talking about how they were sending electrical shocks to her knee just to help her out. Without Brianna, it was very evident that the team just needs someone like her on the court. She did go 2 for 6 shooting wise, but just 20 minutes, for one of your top scorers isn't really enough. And, the Liberty really felt that. Now going into game 3, they're gonna, make sure she's okay enough to play in that game. Uh, Nate Tibbetts mentioned, I believe Tuesday during practice, that they're preparing, with or without her. So there's game plans with whether she's playing, whether she's not playing. So the Mercury prepared, but New York missing one of its top leading scorers of the season definitely, hindered their ability just to get back on the run. They can't always, depend on Sabrina. They can't always depend on, other John Jones, of course. They need to be uh, playing collectively as well. So, whether or not Stewart is healthy enough back for game 3, I guess we'll see, but, the Mercury are, prepared for either scenario.
In basketball, you've seen this play out a few other times where there's someone who's injured who's trying to kind of gut it out. And in a weird way, tonight being a blowout might be a bit of an advantage for the Liberty because she only had to play 20 minutes. If she had to push more, if it was close and they were trying to end it tonight just so that she'd have more days off before the second series, and, at that point, the Mercury you win, that knee's going to feel a lot more rough tomorrow if you're putting 30 minutes on it versus 20.
Right.
So in a weird way, like it being a blowout actually in some ways kind of makes their decision to sit her earlier on in the game and kind of give her a little bit more extra rest. It's a little bit of an advantage for them in that situation. But you don't just heal, a knee in 2 days and feel good about where you are going into this. But so it feels like the momentum, like we said, has swung. You come back home. They did lose game 1 at home, but now you get a chance to come back home, winner takes all type deal. How do you feel about it now? Is this a situation where you feel like they're going to be able to bounce back from dropping game 1 and close out this series now in 3?
They have all the momentum in the world right now. I mean, such a big game in New York of all places, getting that win, forcing that game 3. They have all the momentum in the world. And now they're coming back home. They're coming back to the X factor. Sure, game 1 didn't go their way, but it's not like it was a blowout, right? It was very close. They had to go into overtime because it was 65-65 at the end of regulation. So that game was as close as you could probably, get in the game 1, right? So all they need to do is just do what they did here, right? Be defensive heavy, right? Not foul a lot. Don't send them to the free throw line. Get your shots in. Get the easy shots in. That's something that that they just needed to do in that first game. Now in game 2, they did all that. So I I think they're in a good spot where they can uh, take game 3. They just got to do the basics. That's all they got to do.
And now they look across the other side of the bracket and they know who they're going to be playing too if they do get there after the Lynx have a crazy comeback tonight as well. So possible showdown. They're playing the team that won it all last year, and then they might have to, if they get through that, to take on the number 1 seed too. So not the easiest path ever created to try and get a title, but for at least one more game, for at least a couple more nights, they are alive. They had to get this win tonight. And it was more than just the fact that they got the win. It just really feels like they took a little bit of the spirit and the fight out of New York tonight, and now they have a really good chance of closing this thing out. I feel like fans should be maybe comfortably confident's too strong, but they should feel pretty confident going into game 3, I feel like. So we'll see if
Oh
they
yeah.
use that defense. If they have half the defensive effort they had tonight in game 3, that's all they're gonna need because they were lights out there tonight. And so it's gonna go a long way. I can't wait to see if they can keep this ride going because at the start of the season, no one expected them to get to this point. Now they're just one win away from going to the second round. So we'll see if they can get it done.
Yeah, for sure.
Wendy, I appreciate your time tonight. We look forward to maybe catching up with you again here after the game on Friday and seeing if they get to the second round or not. But I appreciate your time.
Thank you for having me, and let's see if they can do the same thing they did tonight.